Yes, everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Stephen Howson, and this is 5 things that we learned watching Manchester United play Newcastle last night. First things first then, more dismal defending. And do you know what? It's going to cost us at some point massively. Following a very positive result, there's going to be a negative. So let's get it out of the way nice and early so we can end on a high. Now, United's lead lasted just 6 minutes of that first half because we completely and utterly switched off, and not for the first time. And this is definitely something that lies at the feet of the coaching staff to get sorted out. Manchester United at set pieces are dreadful, absolutely embarrassingly dreadful. Now, coming into a game against Newcastle, there's a couple of things you need to think about. One is probably set pieces. The other is Saint-Maximin. And we allowed Saint-Maximin to score from a set piece. Well played, lads. I'm pretty sure that would have been in Ollie's team talk to limit the set pieces and certainly keep a tight marking on that guy, as he's one of the only few threats that they've got. Now, as the cross came in, De Gea was hesitant to claim it, and he's doing himself no favours here in the race with Dean Henderson, who is starting to creep above him, I think, in most people's eyes when it comes to who we as fans at least think is first choice in net at this football club. Maguire's headed clearance simply wasn't good enough. It kind of fell right into the box, right into that dangerous area, just outside the 6-yard box. And fundamentally for me, that's where United have to go and win the second balls. I question where Fred was. I question where Wan-Bissaka was. I don't know whose man Saint-Maximin was, but he was definitely somebody's. And it fell to him completely unmarked inside the edge of the box. This isn't even taking into account the fact that we allowed them to go 3v1 outside the box to work across into the box in the first place. United switch off at set pieces, and it's embarrassing. And it's going to be the undoing of us, because a team that has a little bit of a better goalkeeper than Newcastle have are going to embarrass us at some point with a smash and grab at Old Trafford or holding on at home. It's going to happen with us. Now, yes, it was a great finish from Saint-Maximin on the volley, but he had all the time in the world to line his shot up. And not only this, about 20 seconds before, he just had a dig which made De Gea make a save. This isn't something where you go, oh, I'm not even thinking about him. Surely the fact you've just watched him hit one at goal from a very similar position, you go, I'm probably going to go stand next to him because he's a bit of a goal threat for these. Now, luckily, it didn't cost us, but it did cost us against Sheffield United, and it did cost us against Everton. And the reason why Manchester United are not in a title challenge is because we're incapable of putting together the kind of run Manchester City have put, where we're just this absolutely ruthless winning machine. Number 2, Luke Shaw's continuing to create. Now, Luke Shaw has massively upped his output when it comes to the offensive side of his game. He's now created more chances than any other defender in the league this season with 45. Created 5 chances against Newcastle. Weirdly, they all came from corners. None of them came from open play, which means that at least from corners, we are getting our head onto stuff. We just need to be able to direct them towards goal a little bit better once we're getting them. Now, there wasn't too much defensive work to do, but I was critical of Luke Shaw in my review and in my fan cam last night for switching off, which was one of the things that led to Newcastle's goal in the first place. And I still see elements of that in his game that he needs to cut out. If he's able to cut out those defensive lapses, Luke Shaw's definitely going to be in the consideration for being one of the best fullbacks in this league. But those little defensive lapses are what cost us. When you're a defender, you've got to be a defender first. The reason that Trent Alexander-Arnold gets criticised, and it's a lot worse than Luke Shaw defensively, is because despite the attacking output that he's got, he can be a liability in defence. Now, Shaw's not as bad or as prolific either end, but for that reason, he has to start tightening it up. And if he can tighten it up, he's definitely going to be in the consideration to be first choice at this club for a while, because he's still young enough to do that. But those little defensive lapses, the annoying thing about the defensive lapses is that there was at one point, he was way up the pitch looking for United to be building up, and someone lost the ball on the opposite side of the pitch, and he made a fantastic recovery, managed to get in front of the Newcastle winger, blocked the run-off for what was a dangerous counter that Newcastle was on. And we saw that he's got the ability to stay alert and to stay switched on and sprint back into position. So it's frustrating when you see him not doing that and ambling back towards goal or completely switching off like he did prior to the corner. That being said, he's in the form of his life going forward. And if we had someone that was able to convert from corners, he'd probably double his assists as well. Because United are dreadful at converting corners, but 5 chances from corners last night, that's a start, and let's hope we can start converting them going forward. Number 3, Dan James is seemingly on fire. Now, coming into the game last night, I saw Tony Marshall in the team and I saw Dan James in the team, and I was like, I don't necessarily think Dan James against a low block is going to be a good idea. Now, Newcastle played almost suicidally high line at times, and it actually proved that Dan James was relatively effective getting in behind on that. Where Dan James was very effective, I thought, was off the ball. Now, Dan James isn't a world-class forward, which means he's going to make mistakes, he's going to have errors in his game. And when he makes errors, I love the intensity to go and chase back and win seemingly lost causes. There was also some intelligent fouling that he managed to put in there as well. And I've got all the time in the world for that sort of shithousery. But in front of goal, Dan James is really starting to find the net. Now, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer obviously decided that Dan James' performance midweek was worth another start back-to-back ahead of Mason Greenwood last night against Newcastle. And although it was a relatively quiet game, he still managed to find the back of the net, and he's now scored in each of his 3 last appearances for United. That is form, and it's something that Tony Marshall could do with trying to find. Now, he's also been directly involved in a goal every 70 minutes across competitions so far in 2021, and it looks like he's growing in confidence. After the season he had last year, where I think it was like 4 in 40 plus games, coming into this season and actually being productive and effective in front of goal, similar to how he started his career at Manchester United, he seemed to pile on a load of assists and a handful of goals in a very short space of time, and then he fell off big time. There was obviously a lot of personal things going on, including the move and adaptation to playing for Manchester United, which could have affected that. So it's good to see him becoming a useful member of the squad, because I certainly think there's a time and a place, and Chelsea might be that time and that place this weekend, where having Dan James and having a player that's going to work his socks off the ball is a massive benefit to have in the squad. Now, I think he's probably going to revert himself a 3rd straight start on Thursday against Real Sociedad, especially when Ole came out and mentioned that he doesn't think Shola or Ahmad are going to be starting. But I wouldn't mind seeing him rested ahead of playing Chelsea at the weekend. Shoretire makes his debut. I think one of the most impressive things in Solskjaer's reign so far has been the adherence to the heritage, football heritage, of Manchester United. He's gone back to giving debuts to youngsters. Now, at one point, Jose Mourinho didn't stop the unbroken succession of academy players in the matchday squad since 1938. Otherwise, I think we'd have run him out of town. But he did fail to give a youth debut. I think it was in his 2nd season, where he just didn't give any debuts out. All of the debuts he'd given were the previous season. So likes, I think, McTominay, Angel Gomez, players that he actually played, no new debuts happened, I think, in the 2nd season under Jose. Not the case under Ole. Ole's been giving out debuts left, right and centre. And aside from the Astana game, which was unique circumstances where he'd give loads, he's been dripping in youngsters here, there and everywhere. And Shoretire coming in, to be honest, I think it's a little bit of a surprise. I think there's other youngsters that are ahead of him in the pecking order, so I'm not 100% sure why. And he's also a quite similar player to Amad Traore as well, so I'm wondering if the debut was a little bit of politics on the back of him signing his pro deal earlier this month. I think that might have had something to do with it. That might have been part of the negotiations with his agents, that he gets a nice early debut. We didn't really see much from him when he came on. There was only a couple of minutes left on the clock when he did. But he has become the 240th Manchester United youth product to represent the first team. And if you're wondering, well, how many people have actually played for Manchester United? It's around about 500, which means that approximately half of our players have come through our youth system, which is absolutely sensational, isn't it, when you think of that? He's also the 2nd youngest United debutant in the Premier League era and has been rewarded for some of the fantastic form that we've been seeing on the under-23s of late. Do I think he'll stick around in the Premier League very much? I will be surprised. Certainly once everybody's fit as well, I think I'd be very surprised to see him very often. That being said, there's not a lot of under-23s football left to play. So maybe he's doing it to keep him in and around the squad. Or maybe Solskjaer thinks he's got an absolute wonder kid on his hands and he wants to give him opportunities in the first team. Time will tell. But Shola's one of those that's debuted and also broke through extremely young at every single level of football at Manchester United that he's played. So watch this space. And number 5, March is massive. So United we got one back in the win column again last night, but it's now time to kick on. And obviously that's easier said than done. We've got a relatively winnable, easy game, which, let's be honest, none of us care if we throw on Thursday night. And then we've got a very difficult task against Chelsea. To end February, you've got that Chelsea game, who are revitalised under Tuchel. You've also got more away trips. First up, Crystal Palace. Then you've got the Manchester derby at the Etihad. West Ham's visit to Old Trafford is going to be another tricky one before United face another game on the road against Leicester, which is in the FA Cup to finish off March. So we've got games against 5th, 1st and 4th coming up in our next 4. It's going to be rough. And I think this is where we're going to find out what the makeup of this squad's all about. I think we're starting to understand what Solskjaer likes in a starting 11. I think if we can get Cavani back fit, I think we're going to be a real problem. I think Tony Marshall's form, if it's not become a concern already, it's really starting to become a bit of a concern. But with Cavani being in such good form and looking as dangerous as he is, I think we can see it out. I wouldn't mind seeing Tony played the full 90 or against Sociedad on Thursday, just to see if we can force him back into some form. But some of his movements off the ball and in and around the box, not only are they technically poor, they also look like a player that doesn't look arsed. And I think when the player's not arsed, they're not going to change. So Tony needs to fix up, or he might find himself properly on the outside at Manchester United. That's what I thought. Anyway, let me know in the comments. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What did I miss? What do you want to discuss? All the rest of that sort of stuff. And make sure to check out the Patreon group. We uploaded a video this morning, and there was also a tiny, tiny little bit of very early inquiries on the transfer front as well. If you want to know more about that, link is in the description. Come check it out. There's a Discord group, there's a Facebook group, there's all sorts of stuff going on. I'll see you in the next one. Laters.